Cool. All right, guys. So welcome to the March 2020 conference, the Ruby conference. We're going to be discussing romantic compatibility, visual typing. We're also going to be discussing some other things. Okay, good to know. It's really complicated. I've been preparing this particular conference as a result of basically my coaching practice. I've been coaching a lot of people, and oftentimes people, they get intimacy coaching and they need some additional tips on like their relationships or their dating life. All too often, like for example, I'll get the women out there who are like, hey, I keep dating guy to guy to guy to guy to guy, but I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Or I get the men out there who, end up with the women who just, they're either disloyal or they just end up feeling unwanted. It just ends up becoming, a total shit show, basically, at least from the dating point of view. And it's a serious problem. And not only that, like it gets even more complicated because then people are able to find their golden pairs, or they're not able to find their golden pairs. And when they find their golden pairs, something still is wrong, and they don't necessarily, know what the issue is. And then, or they're not able to actually find anyone that they're compatible with. And it's because they're looking in the wrong place. That's kind of like the main issue. It's just this constant looking in the wrong place problem. So there's so many different ways to solve these issues. So when I'm talking to my various intimacy clients and how to improve their intimacy and whatnot, we actually just get down to the basics and figure out, hey, specifically, how do we go about, solving this problem? So anyway, don't forget, like similar to the live lecture, guys, just put in your questions in Q&A, and I may even answer your questions like about the stuff like as we go. So just be advised, you can do that. But anyway, it just really, there's a lot of turmoil out there, especially with the COVID-19 drama, and then people are not really able to go out anymore, not able to have the opportunity to actually get dating done. People are relying on dating apps more than ever, and it can become a serious problem. Actually, as a result of the recent crisis, so the virus is definitely making it difficult for people from a dating point of view. It's like it is a serious problem. So how do we fix that? How do we solve these problems? Problems like I can't find the right man, or I can't find the right woman, right? Or problems with I thought I found the right man, or I thought I found the right woman. Or should I stay with him? Should I stay with her? Should I leave him? Should I go with somebody else? Or problems like I'm the other woman in a relationship. I've been dealing with that a lot. I think 2019, out of all the female coaching clients that I had for intimacy, it was usually I'm the other woman story and what to do in that situation. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of problems. So I prepared this conference to kind of like walk people through a generalized process or a system that I developed to help them in their dating life to actually like improve certain areas. And yes, it's all, from a romantic compatibility standpoint, trying to get with people who you're compatible with, etc. But also from a standpoint of, okay, hey, how can we do this responsibly? How can we do this safely? And how can I increase the speed, or at least the accuracy, with me finding somebody on the fly to, begin a relationship with, right? So that's basically what this conference is about, is solving those issues, coming up with a situation where we were able to, figure out, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, and how to deal with it. So, hey, little buddy, you get him some of his toys. Cool. So yeah, my dog is my little puppy dog is joining us this evening. So anyway, that's in a nutshell what it's all about. So let's adjust things here. Go into here and then adjust that there, and then we're going to pull this up here. So I'm going to be using a lot of the whiteboard today. So let's so we've basically kind of identified the problem So yeah, yeah, hi, you playing? Yeah, cool. All right, cool. So we basically identified the problem as to like what's actually, the issue with people. But so I present people, these dating rules basically. So rules for dating. And that's the first thing that I do, basically, is I start with rules. And rule number one is pretty obvious, but it's delete dating apps. If you're going on a date through a dating app, you're like seriously doing it wrong. Like, come on, guys. Like, explain to me how you're going to have a long-lasting, meaningful relationship from a dating app. I mean, I never have. I've never gotten something great out of a relationship in that regard out of a dating app. Not once. The longest relationship I did have from a dating app was almost 4 years, but it was an absolute shit show, and definitely not ideal. It's not to say people who use dating apps are like lower quality, but I guess technically from a TE critic rational point of view, people that do use dating apps over time, it's few and far between in terms of being able to find quality, and you're not really going to find pretty high quality, and that could be a pretty big deal. So let's talk about where that quality actually comes from. So rule number one is delete dating apps. Rule number two is like something, it's pretty complicated. A lot of people don't really understand this, but it's basically, you need to have really good relationships. Let's do it in blue. Great relationships with your own gender. I don't know how many times, like in my coaching practice, that I've had to deal with women who are like, oh, I'm able to hang out more with men. I get along more with men than I get along with women. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's because you're either afraid of being judged. It's kind of like how women have this problem where they lack enough humility to actually go to the gym and actually do something about the fact that they're fat and obese, and they won't actually like take any time to do that because they're so afraid of judgment. Because men see life as this pie and they're just trying to get their own slice, but women see life as this pie and they complain about, well, why does she get that slice? Why is she so good that she gets that relationship, or she gets that car, or she gets that attention, right? And it's this constant, and all women do this. And they don't even realize it. It's one of the reasons why, like, some of my mentors, in the past have said, because women completely lack that common unity within each other, and they're definitely willing to sell each other out for like a man, for example, in certain situations, especially the more immature they are. It can be really frustrating, and men can capitalize on that, especially to fulfill their sexual agenda, etc., which is a definite issue. But here's the thing: you have to have great relationships with your own gender. It's critical. The reason why is because the best number one way to get a meaningful, long-lasting relationship that could lead to a marriage or soulmates, etc., is through the power of referral. Why is that? Because people within your own gender actually understand you and how you come off externally better than anyone else. So people, when you have close relationships with people in your own gender, right, they actually really understand the real you, and they know how you come off externally. And they know certain men or women or whoever the opposite sex in your life and how they come off externally. And your friends can naturally like put you two together basically through the power of referral. I don't know how many times I've, observed the most successful relationships out there coming as a direct result of referrals from friends. It's extremely common. In fact, I would say most successful marriages actually come as a result of referrals from friends of the same gender as you, basically. But again, like I said, oftentimes, and men have this problem too, like, I have better relationships with women. And it's because, it's because if you're having around, you're the same sex, those men will realize and tell you to your face that you're being a little bitch and maybe you should probably grow up, right? That's probably, but they want to avoid that pain, right? So then they try to have more relationships with, women in general instead of with men. And then they delude themselves thinking that they're really successful with women in general, when the reality situation is they're not. So the first thing is first, delete your apps, but then you need to have great relationships with the same sex. And here's the thing. Think about it. Like, I've been talking about the concept of love your neighbors yourself quite frequently on my Facebook recently. I put up some posts and created, a lot of reactions and hundreds of comments about this subject matter. But here's the situation. What business do you have having a relationship with the opposite sex if you can't have a great relationship with your own sex first? Think about that. Okay. So stop deluding yourselves. Like, you really have to make sure that you are investing in girls' night or guys' night. And when you are in a relationship with somebody, those people have to respect that. They have to. Like, if you're married or if you have a girlfriend or, or husband or whatever, boyfriend, you have to respect girls' night out. You have to respect guys' night out, and just get over yourself, because it's through great relationships within their own gender that actually increases their relationship viability. When men have great relationships with men, they actually challenge each other, and they end up increasing their own esteem. Because as iron sharpens iron, so does one man to another. So when you see a man who has better relationships with women instead of men, that's a man-child. That's somebody that needs to be avoided. And women aren't attracted to that at all. So with that being said, like, understand, from a relationship's point of view, if you don't have a good relationship with the opposite sex, you shouldn't be in a relationship with anybody. And you're probably deluded or a little bitch, or you're prideful, lacking in humility, if you're willing to face up to the criticism of your own gender. That's literally what it comes down to. And if you think about it, a lot of transgenderism actually comes as a result of this phenomenon. People just aren't really in a good situation, and they end up having better relationships with the opposite sex. A few transgender people that I have coached as a result of that, a few people that I have coached in that regard, they've admitted a few things to me. Like, for example, I had this INFJ. This actually happened to me like 4 times, but I had this INFJ guy who is one of my first few clients, but he actually admitted to me that, he went gay because he had one relationship with a woman in high school that went really bad. And then he just door slammed their entire gender and just focused on men, for example. And then I had another INFJ who, when I started coaching him, he considered himself a man, and then his dad died, and then he started considering himself a woman. He went full on transgender mode. And one of the reasons he cited is because, well, I've always had better relationships with women than I have with men, mostly since his dad basically rejected him, etc. And he's literally basically proving that, at least in his case, that he was conditioned to be transgender, and has nothing to do with him believing that he was born transgender, actually. So there's a lot of nurtural related conditioning that can happen as a result. And one of the reasons why is because people are too afraid to stand up to the criticism that is provided through the camaraderie of having relationships with your own gender. I mean, the movie Mean Girls is an excellent example of that negative reinforcement that women provide each other, which actually leads to women being more beautiful. The more competition women have, the more negativity in that situation, it leads to more humility. Because if a woman can put up with the fact that she's being challenged by, other women in her life, she's more likely to humble herself and actually, get up to their level, etc., or the others will get up to her level, etc., because they'll help each other naturally as part of their female wolf pack, etc. And then they all can become more beautiful over time because they're humbling themselves enough to actually being willing to listen to each other as a result. So this is absolutely critical. The number one way to get an amazing, awesome relationship is literally through referral. But how are you going to get that referral if you're too afraid to have a healthy relationship with other people? Like, how is it even possible? So if you are actually spending more time with the opposite sex, but you're not in a relationship with one, if you're not in a committed sexual relationship with one, and you're spending more time with the opposite sex, that basically proves you're immature. It also proves you're unfit. You are unfit for a long-lasting, long-term relationship. It means you're a man-child. It means you're underdeveloped. It means you're not good enough. It means you're not somebody I would recommend anyone be in a relationship with. So first things first, you need to fix your relationships with your own gender. An example of this, at least in terms of men, and this comes from the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, it's known as being monogamous to your mother, right? Where men end up having a really great relationship with their own mother, and then because of that, they start developing these relationships with women while completely ignoring relationships with men because they don't want to put up with the criticism or the potential criticism that men, put against each other. This is why, like, when you join the military as a man, or any fraternal like organization, etc., the men will criticize you because they want you to be better, and you have to take that criticism and actually change and do that because of the social peer pressure. This is when peer pressure is actually a good thing. A lot of people think peer pressure is a bad thing, and it can be a bad thing, but there is healthy peer pressure out there for sure. And like, these fraternal organizations, including the military, when it comes to men and growing fellow men, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man to another. That's biblical, right? The same concept exists. So how do you actually get around that? How do you deal with that, etc.? So based on that, it's just really critical you have great relationships with your own gender so that you can get access to the number one way to have a healthy relationship, and that's through referral. It makes it easy. You don't have to worry about having pickup game. You don't have to worry about being like a pickup artist or something, or initiating with somebody. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about any of that stress. You just kind of get set up. You know what I mean? And it works out because your friends know you, right? Trust them. Actually spend time trusting them and getting to know them so that, in that situation, they'll be able to do that. You're positioning yourself for greatness, right? That's something that's very key, very critical. Sorry, I haven't eaten anything in a while. All right, let's go on to number 3. Now, let's say you do have a great relationship with your gender, but sometimes your circle of friends just doesn't know any really good quality men or good quality women to actually refer to you. If that happens, it's important to make sure, that, like, hey, let's go out of our way to cycle your friends, So rule number 3 is always be willing to cycle in new friends. Now, it's true that in your life, you'll probably only have like 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 really, really good friends that are super loyal or actually want you, or they invite you to things, or you invite them to things, and it just works. But the thing is that they may not have good relationships or with healthy people, or they may not have good men or women to refer to you. So in this case, you need to cycle in new friends. This is what you do. You cycle in new friends. How do you cycle in new friends? Well, this is where we go back to apps again. There's a way to do that. You do this through Meetup.com. Okay. So yeah, the real dating app, the dating app that actually matters. Although for some reason it's kind of hard to do that right now, given the COVID-19 drama out there. But Meetup.com, the premise is that you need to have more relationships with more people who are your gender to be able to gain access to the all-powerful referral. So you go to Meetup.com, make an account, you download the app, and then what you do is, after setting this up on your phone, you literally you put in your zip code and you find every single possible meetup that you're interested in, and you apply for all of them. So your calendar fills up, so that potentially every single night when you look at your phone, there's a potential meetup that you could just go to on a whim, no matter what. It can even be as simple as playing Magic the Gathering one night, or doing tabletop games, or going rock climbing or canoeing, or having I remember the Sacramento Politics and Philosophy group. That was a good one, right? Of course, it was funny because everyone slept with everybody in that group. that was an interesting situation to be exposed to, and watching people do that consistently. That's really where I discovered the power of meetup.com. Railgun, for example, I met through meetup.com, and now we're married. Think about that, you know? So going to meetups means you meet people of your own gender at the meetups, and you are able to have great relationships with your own gender at these meetup groups. It's one of the fastest ways to actually create new friends of the same gender in order to maximize your opportunity to have a better dating outcome. So based on that, make sure you always keep that open. Now, technically, there's also the opportunity, there's also the opportunity to meet the opposite sex at a meetup, which is great. But a meetup is awesome because when you go there, it's like, okay, hey, you know, wow, he's like deciding to chew on a Band-Aid box. No, don't chew on that. So anyway, let's say, you know, you meet the opposite sex at a meetup. Well, okay, it shouldn't be the main reason you go. The main reason you go is obviously you want to be able to cycle in new friends to get your chance to referral. But here's the thing, like when you go to a meetup group, it's all about shared interest, right? And this is one of the things that increases your chances, right? This increases your chances of being able to find someone that, you know, you're attracted to, or someone that is attracted to you. Very simply, why is that? It's through something called shared interest, because when you're on Meetup, you actually have to put in your interests, and shared interest, you know, because if you're putting in your interests into the app, etc., and then it populates the possible meetups that meet those interests. Other people who go to the meetup groups have all gone through the same exact process. So you are going to a meetup, your purpose is not necessarily to find a relationship, but oftentimes as a byproduct of actually attending the meetups, because of the shared interests, you end up meeting someone of the opposite sex, and then you decide to initiate with them, or they decide to initiate with you, and then you're off to the races. And because of shared interest, they're more likely to be compatible with you, at least sexually compatible with you, at least from your perception functions lining up, as we've talked about previously before. This is very powerful. So, you know, but the thing is that if your primary objective is to cycle in new friends, basically, of the same gender, you're also increasing your chances of getting the all-powerful referral. So it's basically, you're double dipping here. You're getting two benefits for one action, two birds with one stone by going to a meetup, right? You're meeting people, you're meeting new people, potentially creating new friendships, which leads to new referrals, while simultaneously positioning yourself and making yourself potentially available to people of the opposite sex to have sexual relationships with, just through shared interest. And because the purpose of the meetup itself is not necessarily to get laid, but it could be rock climbing or bicycling or political discussions or philosophy or whatever shared interest it is, you know, having a sexual relationship as a result of said meetup group becomes a byproduct. It becomes an absolute byproduct. And all of a sudden you find yourself in a relationship that you didn't necessarily intend to have, because your objective was, I'm just trying to cycle in new friends so I could take advantage of the all-powerful refer a friend, basically. But then it's like, well, you're already there, and it's a safer environment. The sexual agenda is not the objective, because like on apps like Tinder or Bumble or Blender, whatever apps are out there, whatever dating apps are out there, those apps, their purpose is the sexual agenda. But Meetup, that's not it. The purpose is the shared interest itself. And then over time, a sexual relationship would actually develop, because then you can go to a meetup group and you don't have to really care about the sexual agenda. You just have to care about the content or the shared interest of the meetup group itself. This provides you a lot of advantages, a serious amount of advantages, which means you always end up having first right of refusal. It also gives you the opportunity to always back out. if someone initiates with you, if you initiate with someone, because you can always be like, you can always hide and be like, oh, I'm actually, my intention is about the shared interest here of this meetup group, not to have a relationship with you, right? So it lets you, you know, informatively have an opportunity to hide. You could basically hide, right? And you could hide in your meetup group, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of get to know people. You could observe men, you could observe women, and kind of see how they behave. Perhaps they could actually, you could ask questions to the group to find out people's relationship status from an incognito point of view. And then even though the discussion is not necessarily about that, the person you have your eye on starts talking about that, and you realize that they're single. You see what I'm saying? There's so many advantages that comes up from going to a meetup group. That's way better than a freaking dating app. A dating app is a waste of time, guys, because it's all about the sexual agenda. That's the only thing that matters. But in a meetup group, it's not. It doesn't matter. But let's say you're having a hard time at, you know, a meetup group. Let's say, you know, you're going to meetup groups, you're cycling new friends. Well, great. Maybe the meetup group is not working out for you. Maybe you're not getting new friends, or maybe you are getting new friends. Either way, it doesn't matter. But then you can go into number 5, which is the bar scene. Now, the bar scene does not always work for everybody. Sometimes you go to the bar with those new friends that you've just met at Meetup, or there are your pre-existing friends, and that's fine, the bar scene. But the bar scene, you have to go about the bar scene in different strategies. And the reason why is because you have to see yourself as an SE user or an SI user. And you have to behave appropriately in the bar scene if you're an SE user or an SI user. This matters because here's a couple of problems that comes into play with SE user or SI users. So an SI user, it doesn't matter if they're initiating or responding. It doesn't matter if they're extroverted or introverted. So like take an ENTP, right? An ENTP or even an ENFP, okay? Either way, if one of those two initiates with a woman in a bar, they're going to come off creepy AF because they're introverted sensors. And here's the problem. If for some reason they don't come creepy, when they initiate with somebody and that person responds well to them being initiated with, the person that they're initiating with is actually a fellow SI user, because SI is linked to extrovert intuition, which is someone being desired and feeling desired. So they respond positively to feeling desired because they're extrovert intuition. So if an SI user initiates with somebody, chances are probably 70% of the time, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, that person is a fellow SI user. That's going to make for a great sexual relationship, which leads to like the worst one-night stand ever, which if you're doing a one-night stand, what the hell are you doing? Like seriously. Stop with the one-night stands. Women, like, have standards with one-night stands. All you have to do is just be like, hey, I don't have sex with anyone unless they're willing to die for me. That like needs to be your standard, right? If that's not your standard, like, then what the hell? Okay. So from a bar scene point of view, like, you have to understand, you know, you got to know your own type, right? So are you an SE user or an SI user? If you're an SE user, it's your responsibility to initiate with people. If you're an SI user, it's your responsibility to not initiate with people. This is where people start freaking out because it's like, well, what the hell do I do at a bar scene if I'm an SI user? By the way, this also applies at meetups. Let's say you have someone you have a crush on at a meetup and whatnot, you're an SI user, you better not initiate. If you initiate, you're screwing it all up. Stop initiating. If you're an SI user, stop initiating with people. It will never work. It'll always backfire in your face. SE users, stop expecting people to come to you. Like ENTJ women, for example, they like think they have this thing where because they're a woman, like they have to adhere to this stupid tradition that men have to initiate with them. So they're constantly waiting for someone to come up to them all the time, even though they're an SE user. Because they're an SE user, they have introverted intuition, which means they have to show desire, they have to show intent, which means they are the ones who have to initiate first. But because, you know, they have to follow this bullshit, stupid-ass tradition that they've been conditioned to believe is true, that because, you know, they're a woman, they have to wait for a man to initiate with them, you know, then, yeah. But if they do that, they're going to get fellow SE users. I don't know how many times I see ENTJ women in relationships with ISFP men because they're in the bar and the ISFP comes over to them, right? Happens all the time. And it's because they're not willing to initiate with, you know, who they want to initiate with in the bar, because it's like, oh, you know, that's not normal, right? And because the ENTJ woman is so afraid of not coming off as emasculating or domineering or whatnot, they have to change themselves and adjust themselves for that bar scene moment where it's like, oh, I have to let other men initiate with it because it's the man's job to initiate, right? Wrong. Actually wrong. No. Well, I don't want to be seen as a hoe. Wrong. ENTJ women, it's your job to initiate with men. Sorry. It's just how it is. NJ women, it's your job to initiate with men. Get over yourselves. SP women, it's your jobs to initiate with men. Get over it. My wife initiated with me. In fact, every relationship, every sexual relationship I've been with, they initiated with me. Everyone. Every single one. Think about that. Because every time I initiated with somebody, they're like, oh, you're just a creeper. Like, I get that like all the time. Because SE Demon is scary. SE Demon is creepy. It freaks people out, right? So also could SE Trickster or SE Critic or even SE Nemesis. Low SE makes people uncomfortable, right? So why would you initiate with somebody if you have low SE? It makes no sense, right? Especially in a sexual situation. Like, I'm sorry, it's like literally stupid. Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, no. Instead, if you're an SI user, your job is to make yourself as desirable as possible, because you're basically like fishing and expecting somebody to come to you and have a relationship with you, right? That's literally how that works, right? Okay. So how do you do that? What does that look like? So cue up the INTP man or the INFP woman, actually. Or even an ENTP woman. Let's do an ENTP woman. So for an ENTP woman, I've suggested in my coaching sessions, here's how you get men in the bar scene that are actually pretty decent and allows you to have the power and not necessarily them having the power. Because this particular, like, for example, I know this one ENTP woman that I coached, and she was constantly initiating with men, and she came to me and she's like, this is like horrible. I've had so many issues. I've never had a really good relationship. I just can't be loyal to these people, and they're not willing to die for me. I end up having one night stand after one night stand after one night stand. What do I need to do? And I'm like, okay, well, explain to me how you actually do it. So she goes to a bar. She finds whichever man tickles her fancy, and she throws herself at the man. This is an ENTP woman. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly your problem, because you're coming off as someone who's super easy, desperate, and needy, and it's like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and then they move on. They don't actually care. And they don't actually desire you. So what I told her to do was, okay, here's what you need to do. You go to the bar. You go to the bar by yourself, literally by yourself, and you go and sit physically at the bar in the very exact center of the room. Make sure you're all dressed up, maximizing your aesthetics as much as you can. And then you sit at that bar and you order food. You order your drink. You slowly sip your drink as slowly as possible. And you read a book, or you play on your phone, or you bring your laptop and you actually get some work done. And you be productive at the bar. And you do not speak to anyone unless spoken to. And I said, watch what will happen. You're literally fishing, and men will come up to you like crazy. And all those men will be NI users. And they'll be sexually compatible with you. And you then, because you're in the position of responder at that moment, you get to choose which man you want at that point. And you get to size them up. You end up given the choice because they're making the choice to initiate with you, so your SI gets to respond as to whether or not you're comfortable with them or not, huh? And you're putting yourself in your position of your power. Oh, wait, ENTP men. Oh, wait, NTP men. Oh, wait, NFP men. It's the same advice. If you're an NP, do the same thing. Sit in the middle of the bar, look productive. Because when you're looking productive, you stick out like a sore thumb to the opposite sex. Because women see you sitting there at the bar, being productive, minding your own business, enjoying yourself, and you're not like all these other ass hats in the bar being irresponsible AF and shit. You know what I'm saying? And like, wow, this guy's different. This guy's driven. This guy, you know, he's actually getting work done. And guess what? That makes you have higher nobility. It makes you respectable. It makes you esteemed, which means as a man, that makes you more attractive to every woman in the bar. Yet for some reason, people don't even understand that. It's like, it's fucking ridiculous. It's so stupid. And I'm so tired of people like not understanding the basics about how all this works. But instead, you know, we got to hire people like Neil Strauss to teach us about pickup artistry, etc. When I've just literally told SI users, especially NPs, but this also applies to SJs, SI users, you don't have to initiate for shit. So all that little fear that you guys have about initiating with women, then you have to hire this freaking pickup artist expert to teach you how to pick up women. You don't even have to do it. All you have to do is position yourselves so that the women pick you up. Have you ever thought of that? Wouldn't it be so much easier as an SI user that the women are coming to you guys, right? Wouldn't it be so much easier, women, if the men were coming up to you and you have a choice? All of a sudden, like, you're having a hard time getting any attention from men, but all of a sudden you're getting all this attention from men. It's like, what the hell just happened? It's because you actually realize that you're an SI user and you're behaving like one. That's all. But for some reason, our brains, our human nurture have predisposed us, preconditioned us into believing that only men initiate and only women respond. Wrong. That only actually works for 50% of people. And even then, that's not really how it works. Because if you think about it, even responding NI users have the burden of initiation. Even initiating SI users like myself have the burden of responding. People have to come to me, not me go to them. But, oh wait, I'm an NE user. I want to feel wanted. People wanting me and coming to me is what I would prefer anyway, because I'm an SI user and I'm automatically uncomfortable with initiating with the opposite sex for a relationship anyway. Oh, but Mr. C.S. Joseph, doesn't that make you a weak man? No, actually, it makes me a patient man and a strong man, one of endurance, perseverance, and steadfastness, because I'm willing to wait. Which means I'm more respectable, which means I'm more noble, which means I'm more attractive. Don't you guys get it? Don't you see how that's how this actually works? So when you're looking at these relationships, guys, you have to understand what is your role. Are you an SE user or an SI user? You know, and then you need to make your decisions based on that and that alone. Think about how, like, if you're in a relationship, you know, with your husband or your wife, think about how your relationship actually started. Think about who initiated with who, right? Are you in a marriage with a fellow SI user, and because of that, your sex life is like horrible? Are you in a relationship with a fellow SE user and your sex life is absolutely horrible? Why is that? Maybe it's because at the very beginning of your relationship, you guys adhered to the stupid only men initiate with women bullshit, and then your entire relationship is based on that faulty foundation to begin with. And it's your own fault because you're ignorant. So stop doing that. You don't have to do that. This is the correct way. The correct way, also known as the right way, where you are guaranteed success if you do it this way, right? So we've been talking a lot about SI users, you know, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, you know, dating as an SI user. All you have to do is put all of your energy, whether you're a man or a woman, into making yourself as desirable as possible, which means you just have to take care of yourself, you know. Take care of yourself. Dress properly. If you don't know how to dress because you have SE Trickster, then because you're an INP, then go find an SE user friend of the same gender, you know, like an ENTJ or hell, an ESTP or somebody, and go to the store with them and have them create outfits for you. It's not that hard. So work on taking care of yourself, you know, actually shave for once. And when I say shave, I mean, I'm also talking about women too. Shave, okay? Like actually shave, take care of yourself, you know, increase your desirability. That's all you have to do. SE users don't have that problem because they make their clothing decisions based on their aesthetics anyway. So who cares? They don't have to worry about that. SI users have a greater burden of that because, you know, so recognize that you have to create a balance between comfort and aesthetics. So dress that way. I am not telling you SI users to dress like SE users right now. No, that's not what I'm saying. Have a yin and yang equilibrium between comfort and aesthetics. Don't sacrifice too much of your comfort because you need to if you're comfortable, because when an SI user is comfortable, it makes them attractive to an SE user, right? Okay, this is what happens, okay? So based on that, make sure that you're going out of your way to be comfortable. And then you need to show responsibility. How many times when they see that SI user woman sitting at the bar and men are like, and she's sticking out like a sore thumb because she's comfortable, she's also beautiful, she's working, she's being responsible, she's not like all these other hoes in the bar who are just trying to get laid too, just trying to get my attention, blah, blah, blah. In fact, she doesn't have my attention at all. I want to go talk to her. And it literally creates the desire in these men to go up to her and talk to her and be like, hey, what are you doing? Right? I'm going to put a note down here for Rule 6 here in a second. We're going to talk about icebreakers. We'll talk about icebreakers in a second. But, you know, so far, I've just made it sound like it's pretty easy for, you know, SI users. They're literally fishing. They make themselves desirable, and they just sit in the bar, sit at the meetup, and wait for someone to initiate with them. That's basically it. If you go to a bar, for example, looking for a relationship, yeah, the men are lower quality or the women are lower quality. The people at the bar are lower quality. They're not as high quality as a meetup because a meetup naturally produces people of the opposite sex that are higher quality. And the highest quality comes from referrals. So think about it like this in a tiered system. Highest quality relationships comes from the referral. Second highest quality relationship comes from people that you meet at a meetup. Third quality, highest quality would be like at the bar scene. And the lowest is the freaking dating apps. And the absolute lowest is sex that you pay for. You see what I'm saying? So it's all about levels of quality. That's not to say that quality people don't go to the bar. But if you want to increase your chances of having a high quality relationship, you should be relying more on referrals and on the meetup than the bar scene. But let's say you're doing all those, but you're not getting many results. Well, go to the bar scene too. Chances are you might be an SP or an SJ, and those types end up having most of their really good relationships actually come from the bar scene and not as much as the meetup group at times. Technically, the meetup is still better, but they can get some real benefits. It's very rare for an intuitive to be able to maximize a really good relationship with quality people at a bar. Possible, just unlikely. But that's not to say that if you go to a bar, you're not getting very good results. Stay there for 45 minutes, look around. If there's people that you're attracted to, stay a little bit longer. If there's no one that you're attracted to, or if there are people that you're attracted to, but they're either with somebody or they're not initiating with you after, like, say, an hour to 60 to 90 minutes, then move and leave and go to a new bar. It's not that hard. Apparently, there's no bites in that pond, right? You're fishing, okay? You're an SI user. It's your job to fish. You're fishing in these ponds. Okay, there's nothing here. Move on to the next one. It's not that hard, right? So we've been spending a lot of time here talking about how SI users approach it. Let's talk about SE users. What do SE users do? SE users, it's like they have the burden of initiation. You know, SE inferiors have it really hard. How do they know who to initiate with? How do they know who's available? How do they know that, you know, and it's these people that would potentially need, you know, pickup artistry, right? I'm still against pickup artistry anyway. So let's look at it something a little bit different. This is where we're going to talk about visual typing and icebreakers. So if you're an SE user and you go into a bar, I need to find my thing here. Awesome. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, had to adjust my view on the screen here. My nose is starting to itch again. Anyway, um, when it comes to these, these relationships, SE users, it just seems like it's harder for them, right? No, it's not. SE users, all you have to do is, like, when you go to the bar, when you go to a meetup, you find the SI user and then you go initiate with them and then you use your icebreakers. What is the best number one icebreaker that an SE user can use? Number one, here it is. I'm going to write it down right here. It's a sentence. Here it is. Hey, what are you doing? I'm not kidding. That's like the best icebreaker for an SE user, because the SE user with their NI is expressing interest into what the SI user is doing, which makes the SI user feel wanted. And there's an immediate sexual connection if they're a member of the opposite sex, whether or not they're attracted to the SE user or not. Because at the end of the day, the SI user still feels wanted, because every SI user, their extrovert intuition, which is attached to their SI, still wants to feel wanted. It's absolutely critical to them. Hey, what are you doing? That's a great icebreaker. Another one is, I love this one. I was actually taught, an ENTJ taught me this one. He grabs a beer, he sees a woman that he likes, and she's sitting alone. And he sits down and be like, hey, my name is, so-and-so. Tell me a story. That sounds crazy, but and she'll be like, what? Be like, you just seem really interesting, and you just seem like you got a story, so just tell me a story. SI users love it when SI users tell them stories. SI users love to tell stories because they're sharing their own personal experience, right? And it creates an immediate sexual connection, right? Because sexuality is all within our perception functions. Sexuality has nothing to do with our judging functions at all, like literally nothing, okay? Because it's emotional connections that come from judging functions, and you can communicate your way through those emotional difficulties just fine. You cannot communicate your way through sexual connection. It either is natural and has natural chemistry, or it does not. And it's all about and if you want that chemistry, it's all about matching up your perception functions. SE users need to be with SI users. It's that basic. So in order to maximize, the result of that, you gain that, right? So yeah, SE user goes up to the SI user, hey, tell me a story, okay? So, but how does an SE, so these are icebreakers, right? Hey, what are you doing? Tell me a story. Here's another good way of doing it. How to number close somebody if you're an SE user. This is for men or women, by the way. Men or women, do this and be like, hey, I want you to give me your number, or you should give me your number. I want you to give me your number so you can tell me more stories. Or I really love this story, I have to go, but you should SE, you should give me your number. You don't give the SI user a choice. You obligate the SI user into giving you their number. That's how you number close an SI user, right? If you're an any user and the SE user has initiated with you, but you're like a man, for example, but she initiated with you, you should be like, hey, do you want to give me your number? I'll tell you more stories. You see what I'm saying? It's the other side. It's the opposite. You give her, or you give him, you give the NI user, you give the SE user a choice to give you their number. But if they're an SI user, you don't give them a choice. You tell them you should do this, right? By telling an SI user that they should do something, you're making them feel wanted. You're not being abusive. You're not being forceful. You're making them feel wanted, because they like it when an NI user imposes themselves on the SI user imposes themselves on the SI user, right? So this is the basic framework that I follow with anyone who needs dating advice in my coaching practice. The basic framework right here. I get them to delete their dating apps. I tell them that they need to start having great relationships with their own gender, They got to cycle in new friends. If their friends are stale and don't really have, if their friends don't have great relationships with their own gender, well, then that could really be a problem. I find women have that problem more so than men, typically. So I just tell women, you need to get new girlfriends. Men can have this problem too, and it's usually because they're afraid of being criticized by fellow men, and they actually just refuse having relationships with fellow men. Or they're lazy, or they're dopamine addicted to playing video games and living in their mother's basement. And then they come to me whining about how they are still a virgin. Yeah, I wonder why. You see what I'm saying? So I tell them, yeah, leverage meetup.com. Meetup.com is your new dating app, basically. And then you meet the opposite sex at a meetup as a byproduct of trying to create new friends, etc. And then you can also get additional practice at the bar scene. And you just have to realize I'm an SE user or I'm an SI user and you need to behave accordingly, because if you naturally behave accordingly, people will naturally behave accordingly to you. Naturally. If you're an SE user, you need to have the right icebreakers. Sometimes you're an SI user, though, you need to have an icebreaker. So what an icebreaker would look like for an SI user, which they don't often use, and I don't recommend SI users initiate with anybody, but a way an SI user can initiate with somebody while reducing the risk that they're courting an additional SI user, what they say is, hey, do you want to do this? Or what do you want? Do you want this drink? I can get it for you. We are all going to have fun right now. Do you want to come? Right? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? It's all about do you want. And if you say that to a fellow SI user, that SI user is instantly like, no thanks. Because they want to be told what to do. They don't want to be given choices, right? Naturally. So then they reject that and they just don't care. So then they just move on. It's not relevant to them, right? It's not relevant to them at all. So based on that, you have to remember it's really important, to make sure that what you say and what you do matches your natural behavior, your natural sexual inclinations. Men, if you're afraid of initiating with the opposite sex, chances are you might be an SI user. And SI users, it's not your job to initiate with the opposite sex. It's actually her job to initiate with you, actually. Keep that in mind. And stop judging yourself for being a weak man. And don't let anyone else judge you for being a weak man because you're expecting women to initiate with you, because they should be. Because that's just how your mind works. So stop allowing these stupid, predilections or these stupid preconceived notions by society or your family or your church or whatever to get in the way as to how you, live your life accordingly. Like it's really frustrating and doesn't actually mean very much. So let's go on a little bit more. Sometimes, at the end of these intimacy sessions, they kind of really don't know what to do. And this is all very new to them, and it's like, well, how do I actually use this system to get these relationships that I want? And it's like, I need practice. I'm like, yeah, you need practice. So I tell them to practice. So like when it comes to the women, for example, who are asking me for this advice, right? When it comes to the women, I'm like, okay, so here's what you do. Go get your girlfriends and have a meeting and tell them all about these rules for dating over coffee, like a Starbucks or something. Be like, let's all go get boyfriends and let's follow the system and make it a game that you do together. And then I give the woman who I'm coaching the opportunity to, have some visual typing tips, right, to utilize so they can actually identify sexually compatible men with them. I also do the same thing for men. Like, men, go get a wingman and go to the bar or go to meetup groups with your wingman. Or actually, I tell everybody, go to the mall. Go to the mall, and your job is to just observe the opposite sex and look at them and visually type them, right? It's pretty easy to visually type. Let me tell you how easy it is. Let's look at some visual typing strategies. So let me pull up a document here to share with you. Awesome. All right, so we have the Quadra Foursquare, okay? So we have the Quadra Foursquare, visual typing. So after a while, if you haven't gotten the Ultimate Messaging Formula, guys, what are you doing? It's at ultimatemessagingformula.com. It's a fantastic document. It has tools, these little visual aids that you could do. It helps you understand, the cognitive functions. It helps you understand what people's types are. And it allows you to basically use all these visual aids to easily type people on the fly. One of the strengths of the Ultimate Messaging Formula is the Quadra Foursquare, as you see here. And I did a video recently. It's season 17, episode 11. It's how to type with quadras. If you really want to maximize your ability for visual typing, you need to watch that episode immediately. Season 17, episode 11, that is a companion episode for this Ruby conference right now, okay? So what you do, to achieve that, basically, is you learn about the Quadra Foursquare, and you're able to type people through quadras. Because think about it, if you're a Crusader type right here, right, you're supposed to be with a Wayfarer, on the opposite side. If you're a Templar, you're supposed to be with a Philosopher on the opposite side, right? So if you're one of these four types, Ardent, Knight, Cavalier, Rogue, you're supposed to be with a Martial, Duelist, Druid, or Ranger by default. That's who you should be targeting. What's really funny is that people within quadras visually look the same. They basically dress the same. They basically are kept the same. They shave the same. They have very similar aesthetic habits. Very similar habits. This is a fact. So it goes even further. There's even more ways to do it. Like NPs, right? NPs, they're SI child, SI inferior. NP types, especially SI inferiors, they usually keep their facial hair pretty short, because if their facial hair, as men, that gets out of control, it starts to itch their faces. So they keep their facial hair short. So you automatically know that if a man keeps his beard short, chances are he's an SI user. The longer the beard, the more SE they have. The shorter the beard, the more SI they have. Ooh, yeah. Bright colors, that's SE. Dark colors, that's SI. So I tell people, walk around the mall and look at people. Be like, oh, that's an SI user. That's an SE user. That's an SI user. That's an SE user. And compare people. This person really cares about aesthetics. This person really cares about comfort. That's how you start the visual typing process, okay? You look at how people dress. You look at how they manage their facial hair, right? You look at, are they trying to show off? Like, women, are they trying to show off their rack? Are they trying to show off their ass? Like, chances are they're an SE user. If they're trying to hide that, if they're trying to cover up, they're an SI user. It's no wonder, like, the Knight type ISFJ women are all about covering up and forcing other people to cover up with them because they're FE parent, because that's the normal thing to do for women, right? Wrong. ISFJs, stop forcing women, especially your daughters, to dress a certain way, because they are not you. And in order for them to be happy sexually in their life, they need to be able to dress exactly the way they want to, and stop calling them hoes or sluts to their face, because you're actually too ignorant to understand that they're trying to meet their needs and also meet the needs of the men in their life. So, like, stop being judgmental. Like, you're actually incorrect about that, and your sense of traditionalism is arbitrary and meaningless and worthless. So stop doing that to your children. And by the way, like, you judging them as if they're dressing slutty or whatever, that's actually kind of subjective. That's kind of subjective, and that's not necessarily actually true, because the particular men that they're trying to attract are the men that they would be attracted to them based on how they would dress by default. So, like, now obviously there's some times where people take it way too far, but the thing is that you ISFJs out there, you take it too far, because you just want to turn everyone into prudes instead of actually let people live their lives and have freedom of choice. It's funny how the people who need freedom of choice, NI users, are also the people that dress the most aesthetic, and are also the people who are most likely of being accused for dressing slutty or dressing like hoes. So stop it. Like, I don't give a shit about your stupid ass effie parent opinions about those things. I really don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. Let people live the way they want to live. Let them be free and stop judging them. Sorry, that's just a little rant, but I just get really pissed off at ISFJs right now. I'm like pretty mad at ISFJs pretty hard right now because I've been dealing with a lot of pig-headed ones recently, and it's been really frustrating. Trying to like force everyone to behave a certain way that their FI critic thinks is like the best way, because they're all systematic too. And at the same time, they can't even live up to their own FI critic standards anyway. They're just hypocrites, and they're finding the innocent guilty and being injustice fest. And I'm just sick of it. I'm just so sick of it. And especially when it comes to relationships, I don't know how many times I've seen ISFJ mothers sabotage the relationships of their daughters over and over and over. Hell, I even had my own ISFJ mother sabotage my relationships too. So I guess that's par for the course. Yes, I'm bitter, I'll admit it, but you know, it happens. So I'm here to protect people against that from happening. That's why I'm pretty harsh when it comes to ISFJs, at least at this present time. So, but anyway, so identify their quadra, or at least identify if they are an earth user or a wind user. Because hey, if they're an earth user, they're a water user and want to feel desired. Or if they are a wind user, that means they are all about passion and desire, and they will want to initiate with you, right? It's that simple. And you can look at them, you know, also like, let's say you're an intuitive, you're having a hard time finding ENTPs or ENFPs. Let's say you're an INFJ or an NJ type trying to find a really good NP. The darker a man is wearing their clothes, it could be blacks, it could be grays, it could be navy blues, but the darker they are, the higher their expert intuition is. The higher the water they are. The darker, the higher the water. Think about that. Water is dark. It's blue. It's dark green. It's the deeper you go, the darker it is. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense, right? So the darker the colors, the more NP they are, the higher their NE is, right? Or the more aesthetically colors, brights, being show-offs, you know, they are, the more SE they are, right? Which means it's their job to initiate, right? This is very easy when it comes to visual typing. Very, very easy. And it's absolutely necessary, you know, to consider that. Because if you don't consider that, then you're just being ignorant, and you're at risk of, you know, like, imagine a crusader initiating, you know, then they're at risk of actually, you know, making a philosopher feel wanted. And then you have a crusader plus philosopher relationship, or even worse, a crusader-crusader relationship. Yeah, that's going to suck. Or the same thing, you know, with the Templar initiating with a Wayfarer, you know, that's not going to work exactly. So just remember, guys, or when a Wayfarer is, you know, responding because this ENTJ Marshall woman is like, oh, men initiate, not women, right? And then all of a sudden they end up in a relationship with a Templar type, and they're not ever sexually fulfilled ever. So to watch out for these things, when you're in the bar scene, when you're in the meetup group, it's pretty easy. Like, it's super easy to determine if someone is an SI user or an SE user, literally based on how they dress, literally based on whether or not they do their hair. Like, a woman who doesn't really touch her hair very well, you can tell the women who touch their hair versus the ones that don't. The ones that are all about maintaining their hair and doing something with their hair in some capacity, they're an SE user, obviously. So they're not doing much with their hair, or if they don't brush it very often. Their hair is all about comfort, right? And they're an SI user. Pretty simple. Or how men handle their facial hair. The shorter the hair, the more likely they are an SI user. The longer the hair, the more likely they're an SE user. The more visually, outwardly, with colors that they dress, the more likely they're an SE user. The more darker they are, the more likely they're an SINE user. It's pretty simple, guys. These are basic visual typing secrets that you can use. Use these to identify people who you may or may not be attracted to before you either initiate or allow yourself to be initiated with by them in the bar or at the meetup, etc. Right? Basic. So follow these principles, and you'll be much more successful in your dating life and being able to find someone of the opposite sex that will give you a long-lasting, meaningful relationship, such that you can finally have a relationship where you feel respected at last, or you could finally have a relationship where you are able to have sex with a man because you know this man is willing to die for you, right? No greater love than when a man gives up his life for his beloved, right? This is what happens as a result of following this exact dating system, okay? So anyway, that concludes the March 2020 Ruby conference. Let's go ahead and take some Q&A. You guys could put it in the Q&A section, or you guys could put it into the chat. That's fine. Just we'll adjust myself here appropriately. All right, cool. All right. Remote user asks, how about when an INFP initiates with an ENTP and is now in a relationship? Well, my first question is how do they know they're an INFP, and how do they know they're an ENTP? It's always my first question. Did they verify, and how did they verify, right? But assuming that's true, it's usually because they're adhering to this whole bullshit gender role, where it's like, okay, hey, you know, because I am a man, it's my responsibility to initiate, even though I'm an SI user. Now, a man or an SI user can get away with initiating, provided they are giving people the choice. So their initiation is actually a request for a choice. Hey, do you want to do this with me or not? You're giving them a choice. Whereas an NI user, when they initiate, they need to be like, hey, you should do this, or you should come with us, or you should come with me, or you should give me your number, or you should tell me a story. You should. Or I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Whereas an SINE user is, I will do this for you. Do you want me to do that? Or do you want this? Do you want that? It's all about giving the NI user choices so that they feel like they have freedom, so that they feel like that you're being loyal to them, right? So that's how I would answer that question. Any other questions, folks? Only had one question tonight. Looking for more questions. Now's the time, guys. Now's the time. Oh, another question popped up. Awesome. Okay. Awesome, Mr. Remote User. That's great. Newt asks, can an unconscious focused INFJ or ENFP like to dress both in black and colors? Yes, it can. Cognitive focus definitely matters in relationships. So INFJs who are shadow focused definitely can dress in black, but it's usually because they have this SI inferior fear factor with their performance anxiety, and they're not entirely sure, you know, to do that. So when I'm talking about these dating tips, they're actually very general. And sometimes you have people who are very shadow focused because they're not really allowed to be in their ego, because they're around people who don't allow them to be in their ego, namely their family. Usually it's a person's family that is inhibiting a person from being in their ego. And getting them away from their family is the fastest way for them to get back into their ego, etc. And also, if you explain to the INFJ that you're comfortable with them and whatnot in that regard, then you'll be in a better position as a result. So, and that should solve that issue. But usually it's also the INFJ might be mirroring somebody or mirroring someone that they're in a relationship with as well. You have to look at who they're mirroring or if they're mirroring. But if they're in their like default state where they're just trying, and they're actually single and they're just trying to like, you know, be pleasing in some capacity because they're actually trying to find a relationship, they're going to maximize their aesthetics as much as possible with their extroverted sensing. So if they're not really dressing in a way that would match extroverted sensing, they're probably not looking for a relationship to begin with. Keep that in mind. Next question is unrelated, but can we see the puppy? Maybe. He's kind of, okay. All right, hand him here. Okay. Yeah. So here you go. Hi. Yes. Hi. Say hi. Yep, there's a little puppy dog. A little Labrador retriever. He's an interesting little shit, let's be honest. You know, it's been really good having him. We're learning a lot about personal responsibility and having to take care of him because he's just a puppy, doesn't really understand very much, and managing him. And you know, it's kind of like when you take a dog to obedience school. The obedience school is actually for the dog owners more so than the actual dog. And a lot of people don't understand that, but that's okay. And this dog is SI inferior for sure. He's an ENTP. It's kind of interesting that he's such an ENTP, but yeah, he is very much an ENTP. So, and he hurt his little paws recently. You got little calluses on your paws. So, you know, we'll give him an opportunity for that. Oh, sorry. I kind of just dropped him on his bed. Whoops. All right. Next question. Does social compatibility matter as much when making friends with people of your own gender? Kind of. I haven't talked about camaraderie enough. I need to get into camaraderie. It's long enough. I've been hammering romantic and social compatibility enough. It's time to get into camaraderie. And camaraderie actually can seriously benefit you the most, more so than social compatibility when you're coming to having relationships with your own gender, because it's those camaraderie related relationships, basically people within your own quadra that will be able to criticize you and improve you much more than other people. And as long as you're willing to listen to them, you'll be in a better position, right? So I would actually say to follow dating tip number 2, great relationships with your own gender. Try your best to do that with people within your same quadra for maximum benefit if you can put up with them, over time. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that for sure. Lev asks, what are generally concrete users and abstract users' interests in meetups? I'd assume sports is concrete and something like debate groups are abstract. Honestly, I'm not really going to comment on that at all, Lev. That's a very any child's question. And because if you think about it, you're just trying to make yourself look more interesting. How about you stop making yourself look like something and actually just put in your freaking interests into the Meetup app and just go with it and just trust the app. Don't try to game the system. Don't try to identify people's interests in such a way so that you can particularly try a certain flavor of woman and try to game the system. That's inappropriate. That may not necessarily be your intent, but when you're anti-trickster, intentions don't really matter. But that will be the end result of your actions if you try to do that. Stop doing that. Instead, just put in what interests you. Make it about you. It's okay to be selfish in that point. You need to be selfish in that situation. And then as a result of that, find yourself in a better position as a result. Hopefully that answered your question, Lev. Lev also asks, if SI users are supposed to look the most attractive to catch an SE user, why wouldn't they want to dress as best as possible, even if it's coming off like an SE user? Because they don't, because remember, comfort is still more important to an SI user than aesthetics. So, and here's the thing, if they really try to look like an SE user, they're just going to attract another SI user, which is not going to be good for them in a relationship anyway. So they have to create a balance where comfort is technically primary and aesthetics are secondary. Whereas with SE users, aesthetics is primary and comfort is secondary. You need to think about this as a primary versus secondary yin and yang equilibrium in a form of a dynamic and not static. I don't know how many times I got to tell you TE users to stop using inductive reasoning and stop thinking that everything is a static this or this or this. No. It's all dynamic, guys. You have to think about things in terms of dynamics, primaries and secondaries, and stop thinking in terms of static inductive qualifications. Qualifications don't work when it comes to psychology. It's all about a changing dynamic, an ouroboros, a yin and yang equilibrium in literally every aspect of life. Everything. There's no such thing as statics when it comes to psychology. No such things. Hopefully that answers your question. Lev says, I'm not doing anything. I'm just curious as to what you've seen. I put my interest in Meetup already, regardless of the conference. Well, that's great. Just the thing is that when you look at the end results of trying to identify the specific interests and whatnot, and then try to match them up there, I have seen people do that. I've seen philosopher types do it a lot, especially ESTJs and INFPs. For some reason, they think that if they put in certain interests for a certain woman that they have a crush on, that they would imagine, or a certain type of woman that they imagine would be what they were looking for. And then they try to put in their interests hoping to attract that particular woman when the reality situation is that's not actually real. It's not reality. And they try to game the system, which is why I've said what I've said. It's not me necessarily getting upset at you or holding you personally responsible as a result. It's more of hey, be aware of this phenomenon, because if you're not careful, it'll blow up in your face. And in terms of interest, you really don't know a person's interests, because guess what? It's human nurture. Human nurture dominates a person's interests. Not everybody likes rock climbing. Certain types are more likely to like rock climbing than other people, but some types that do like rock climbing don't even know they like rock climbing because their family or their friends have never taken them rock climbing. You see what I'm saying? So it's too gray area, it's too arbitrary, it's too undefined, it's too subjective for me to just say, you know, what interests are, you know, this or this or this. It doesn't work like that. Human nurture dominates that space a little too much, and there's no way I could ever provide you a direct answer that has any remote accuracy. So all you can do is literally just put in your own interests into the app, and that's it. That's really all you can do. And just let this technology do it for you, and not actually like concern yourself with the interests of other people. Hopefully that answers your question. Marcelino asks, is it possible to spot TIFE or TEFI with visual typing as well, perhaps through mannerisms or something? It definitely is, but when it comes to dating needs to have higher emphasis on sexual compatibility than emotional compatibility, especially since, you know, when you look at a pedagogue relationship, pedagogues relationship have high sexual compatibility but low emotional compatibility. I still rate that relationship much higher than like the fourth relationship, also known as the Enigma relationship, within the Quadra, within your golden Quadra. So, like, for example, this would be an ISFP with an INTP, right? Because they are each other's superegos. So people who are in superego relationships with each other, like a pedagogue relationship where that ISFP would be in a relationship with an ESTJ, you know, that ISFP would be better off with an ESTJ than being in a relationship with an INTP, actually, because the sexual compatibility is slightly higher. So something to keep in mind, Marcelino, when you're looking at that. But yes, there is mannerisms and whatnot, but it's not as relevant. It's just not as relevant when it comes to the context of dating. So, so yeah. Hey, what are you doing? Don't eat that. Don't eat that, you silly. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind when you're moving forward. Now, if I was to attempt like some mannerisms, I don't know, TIFEs are just, in general, they're pretty definite, pretty confident in that. So Marcelino, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, you can ask it again in a different way. I will admit I am avoiding answering that question because I don't want to take away from, you know, the emphasis of dating as it is, because it's hard enough for people to actually find people that are compatible. If you're really, really looking for that emotional connection, you can even have that in a pedagogue relationship. It does exist. You just have to be willing to communicate your way around it. But like I said, you know, sexuality is such a primary thing. It's so important that you just kind of have to let it go. So that's what happens, you know, as a result. So Newt says, which seduction style do INFJ fit in from the art of seduction? They can be, INFJs can definitely be sirens. They can also be dandies. They're very dandy related as well. And they can also be very rakish. Because their ESTP subconscious is all about rakes. So here you go. Awesome. So yeah. Okay. Any quarantine dating tips? I knew you were going to ask that. Like, I knew that Marcelino, out of all people here, was going to ask that question. I saw it coming like within the first few minutes of the conference. I'm like, if Marcelino shows up, he's going to ask about dating tips in quarantine, right? Yes, I do have some tips for quarantine. So when it comes to quarantine and being in quarantine, focus, if you're an SI user, focus on making yourself as desirable as possible. It's all about self-improvement. If you're an SE user, focus on being more passionate, finding your passions while you can, and focus on building yourself. It's really put yourselves in a state of preparation, put yourselves in a state of continuous improvement, right? The principles of Kaizen. You can have good relationships with your neighbors and good relationships with your current gender while under quarantine, because all you have to do is make sure all of those people that are in your life have everything they need. Make sure they have enough food and water to get through quarantine, to make sure that they help them out with their job situations. Just be a help to these people. And then as a result, it will increase your relationships with your own gender. It may even make you stronger, which makes you more attractive to the opposite sex later when quarantine is lifted, for example. Otherwise, having online relationships is just not something I recommend at all. And that's why rule number 1 is basically delete your dating apps, hands down. So, and I hope that answered your question. Lev says, Marcelino, make sure the girl next door doesn't have the virus. To which I would like to add to that, I think Marcelino should make sure the girl next door doesn't have plenty of viruses, if you know what I mean. So, just saying. Just saying. All right. Okay. Well, that seems to be it for Q&A. And thank you all for coming to the Ruby conference this time around. I hope you guys found this valuable. With that being said, guys, you'll have a good night, and I'll see you all later.